Good morning and welcome to the next Old Buzzard video. I had posted on Facebook and a couple of different enthusiast groups the question about what makes the best spray cleaner, spray wax, spray protectorant for a UTV, and I didn't quite get the responses that I was expecting. The way I phrased the question was asking folks if they've used multiple products, what do they find superior to the other, and I didn't get but just a couple of responses that said I use this, but I prefer that. I had a ton of responses about what their current favorite product was, but there wasn't enough data for me to sort out any kind of consensus over what's better than the other. So I've decided to make my own independent test. A lot of comments come up about SC1. SC1 seems to be really popular, comes up a lot on all kinds of tests and recommendations and whatnot. SC1, I find it as cheap as $10.99 for a 17-ounce can on Amazon, so that was one of the most popular responses. I've been using a product called Honda Spray Cleaner. It's a spray cleaner and polish, where the SC1 just says high gloss coating. So this one's not to be used for cleaning, just for application after you've cleaned everything. This thing kind of gets in and cleans it up a little better than just washing it with a brush, and is supposed to be a shine protectorant too. So then 303 comes up. I was surprised actually by a number of these products. They're available in 15 different varieties. This particular one is 303 Protectant, and there was about 15 others to pick from, but this is what they had on the shelf at the car parts store. So it's not a cleaner either. Helps prevent fading and cracking, repels dust and lint, and dry to the touch. So another thing that comes up a lot is Lemon Pledge. Now, I was also surprised that Lemon Pledge comes in about 15 different varieties. I just grabbed what we had on the shelf in the house there. This one's called Lemon Clean. The Lemon Clean runs, well, you can buy 2 cans of it for a total of 20 ounces. And I didn't write the price down, but I think it's $5 or $6 a can. The 303 ran $9.23 for a 16-ounce spray jug. The Honda, once again, was $8.99 for 12 ounces, and the SC1, one more time, was $10.99 for 17 ounces. And I hope I read all those correctly. Another product that I've got laying around, a lot of people just said any old silicone spray. I'm not sure I'm going to have room to test these, because what I'm going to do, I'm going to tape off sections of the roof and of the sides of the Can-Am Maverick Trail. I'll tape them off and I'll treat them each with a coating, but I'm not sure I've got room for 5 different products, so that may not happen. I'll test for how sticky is the stuff left, and it might be kind of a goofy test when I get there, but you might enjoy seeing it. And then I'm going to take the thing out after it sits for at least a day for everything to firm up and do whatever it does. But then I'll go out. It's starting to get above freezing now. In fact, we're moving from 20 and low 30-degree temperatures up to 40 and 50 degrees just in a heartbeat. So in the next day or two, there's going to be a ton of mud. I'm going to go out and I'm going to mud the thing up on purpose, come back and wash it, and then we'll compare the finish that's left after the washing. That was kind of my main complaint with the Honda spray, is after a good washing, you could tell there was maybe a little bit left, or a little bit of the effect left. but I'd have to touch it up with this after every washing. I really didn't like that. If I'm going to do it after every washing, then I might as well use the cheapest product, which might be by going down to the dollar store and getting the most basic lemon pledge there is. I think it's, well, you can buy little 8-ounce cans for a buck a bottle at the dollar store, so we may end up going that way. But there's only one way to find out, so let's see. I've already got it washed. In fact, I've washed it twice. I washed once. It was so cold outside I couldn't take it out, but I washed once just with a bucket and rags, a couple of buckets. One that was about a 50-50 mix of Simple Green, because I understand it's a pretty good wax remover. So I washed it down real good with Simple Green and then hand rinsed it. And the next day it warmed up enough I could get it outside, so I did my normal washing with a automotive wash soap and a brush. Actually, I even pressure washed it first. So it's been washed multiple times. The plastic on it's as clean as can be. So the next step is to go tape the thing off and start treating sections. So hope this works out okay. Hope it provides valuable information. Thank you. I think I'll start my test by giving the whole thing a real good rub down with Simple Green. I've heard that Simple Green is a pretty good stripper for waxes and whatnot. So any of the silicone sprays or anything that's in the Honda spray that I've been using, I hope to get completely off, but I'll give it a shot with Simple Green and we'll see what happens. I've got it up on the lift a little bit so I don't have to bend over to wash it off, but it's usually these panels right in here that I'm real disappointed with. In fact, I can see, I don't know if you can see, but there's a splotch there and some splotches down here. I don't know if those are because I didn't wash it well enough the last time. It was a car wash, so it may be that I didn't get it brushed off good enough down there. But I'll start off giving it a real good wash and see if I can get all the old product off. So this is probably about a 25% solution of Simple Green. It's still too cold outside for me to go out there and do this. But I'll hand wash it or bucket wash it in here and we'll see how it does. Okay, I've gone over all the side here at least twice with the Simple Green. It's got a separate bucket and separate rag. We'll start rinsing it off real liberally. Fine with hate. Okay, this side's all cleaned and dried, so I wiped it down with Simple Green twice. I rinsed it 2 or 3 times really well, and as it dries I can see the white splotches that were there before are coming back. So I think I'll move to step 2. We'll take a little alcohol to those splotchy places. The rest of the plastic does look a little cleaner. I did a better job by hand with a hand towel than I did with the brush at the car wash. But let's hit some of these splotchy places with alcohol. I don't believe alcohol hurt the plastic at all. Not getting anything off of it that I can see. But I don't know if these splotches are something that's normal. Are they because of the product that I've been using, the Honda spray? I don't know what's caused them. Maybe the minerals in the water here We don't have real hard water, but we've got some calcium in the water that does turn things white. It may well be the calcium, I suppose. But we'll just wipe it down real good with the alcohol and see if we can get rid of those splotches. Might even make it worse, who knows? I better not hurt my baby. Okay, that'll only take a couple of seconds to dry. Let's see what happens to those white splotches. A few more seconds, it's evaporating. You see a lot of white underneath that little form in the plastic there. So, and I can kind of see some uneven black right here. I'll turn the camera off for a minute. We'll let it dry real good and then we'll have a look. Yeah, it's going to be really hard to see in the camera. In fact, let's turn some of the light down on it. See if a little lower light will make it show up better. No, that's not going to help either. But there's still some white splotchiness in several areas, especially right through here. Let's put the light back on it. Ought to be able to see that in the camera. Maybe when it's on a bigger screen we'll see it. Then down here, this panel has got quite a bit of it going on. Okay, so in order to test 4 areas on the roof, I've got to tape it off at 10.5-inch intervals. So let's see. Okay, so here's my plan. I've got it all taped off now, and so I've got 4 areas on the roof, 4 areas on the door. What I'm going to do, I will, as I was saying, I will keep every product separated so I don't contaminate one rag from another. I'll apply it with freshly washed washcloths and then buff them out with the microfiber. And then I've got it recorded on that paper which positions which is in, because I know I'll forget within minutes if I don't have it written down. So we'll start applying. Okay, so I'm going to start with the Honda spray. Directions are to shake it up really well. Apply it real liberally, and for an extended shine and extended protection, let it dry enough that it, what are the words that it uses? Oh, come on, direction. Okay, it sat an hour, buffed it out a second time, pulled the tape off of it, and you probably won't be able to see it real well because of the lighting in the shop. The far left is the SC1. It pretty much, well, I'm not going to say by far, but it has the darkest black and the most shine to it. Just to the left of the SC1 is the Honda spray. It has the least shine, and you can actually see a little splotchiness in it. The next one over is the 303 protectant. It's fairly black and fairly even, but it's not as good as the far right here, and I wish I had better lighting. I'll try and take some more video when I push it out to go for a ride. Hopefully it'll be in the sunlight with even lighting. But the far right is the Pledge, and it is almost as black and as even as the SC1. So it's going to be very interesting to see how these stand up. If the Pledge stands up as well as the SC1, I'm just going to use Pledge. A lot of folks do that. I used to use it on the airplane, and it worked real well for that, both on the plexiglass and the paint. So yeah, the Pledge has actually got carnauba wax in it, or at least the version of Pledge that I have has carnauba in it. So it's not a surprise that it glosses things up. Anyway, but the SC1 by far is the glossiest, wettest look. I'm not necessarily looking for the wet look, but still, it's pretty impressive. You know, just because I used the Honda spray for a whole year and thought it did pretty good doesn't mean that I'm not trying to stay open-minded about it. And I am impressed with the look of the SC1. Maybe I can get it in a case price that's a lot better than the individual price. But that's the top. We'll have a look at the side. Okay, here's the side view. Again, I don't know how well this is going to come out. My little camera only has 1.5 inch screen on it, but I'm pretty sure you'll be able to see where the tape marks were, and that's not residue. I tried to clean that with a little bit of alcohol, and that's just the base of what I started from. It's not a tape residue. The SC1 creeped under the tape a little more than anything else did. But in order, there's the SC1. Again, just like the top, it's very dark, very shiny, and yeah, it makes it look brand new or even brighter than brand new. Honda spray, not shiny at all. It's a flat black matte look that has a little bit of inconsistency to it. That's what I'll call it. The 303 did a pretty fair job, and depending on the angle, yeah, it's fairly consistent too, and glossy, but not quite as glossy as the SC1. Yeah, let me have another look here. It's a pretty close second to the SC1, but then you get over here to the Pledge, and the Pledge is very close to being just as glossy as the SC1 is. So it'll be interesting to see which one stays on the best. If I can get a little farther away, and then right in front of the light so it's cast evenly. I don't know what you'll be able to see from that, but anyway, the test continues. The next test is going to be which product makes dust stick to it, and I'll probably make everybody laugh when you see what I'm going to do. Thank you. Okay, I decided not to do the driver's side with the same 4 products that I used on the passenger side. One of the comments that I'd seen pretty popularly on the Facebook stuff was about silicone spray. This liquid wrench silicone spray I think is pretty much pure silicone spray. It says it's safe for plastics, and I don't see any kind of warnings or anything on it. And like I say, I do believe it's pretty much just pure silicon. So it's this panel right here that I did with it. And again, the lighting's poor. I'm going to get it outside and we'll look at it some more. But that panel is actually duller than the untreated panels to the left and right of it. It has a very even, full matte finish with no reflectivity to it at all, which, if that's the look a guy's looking for, I guess that would be just fine. But I'm not impressed as far as darkening the black up. Not to say it's a bad product or a bad thing to use, but it's not what I'm looking for. So I think the next test is going to be, does dust stick to any of this? Okay, I've got it outside in the natural sunlight, and I was actually very surprised in the natural light as opposed to the artificial lighting I have in the shop. Each of the four products looks much more even, much darker than it did inside. The SC1 still looks a little bit wetter and darker, and the Honda spray is the least of those purpose-built sprays. Now the liquid wrench, in fact, maybe I'll grab the camera and show you. Let's see if we can do this without screwing too much up. Can you see that? The liquid wrench silicone spray is almost, yeah, well, it's lighter than the original black. You can see perhaps the tape marks that were left when I pulled the tape off. Yeah, it either did absolutely nothing, or it's actually even a little worse as far as being black. So now comes the humorous part. Let's get this back on the tripod. You guys will probably laugh your ass off at this. But one of the comments that I heard a lot of was that a lot of these products will actually make dust and stuff stick to the plastic. And doggone it, I don't want to scoop up a bunch of sand and dirt and gravel and throw on my rig. So the test I come up with, and this ought to be even a better test than putting any kind of sand or dirt dust on it. Let's make some cookies. You guys are going to laugh at me for this, I just know that. But here's what we're going to do for testing. You know, from up here, I can still see the Honda spray is the least effective of anything that I've got up here. Anyway, this is just baking flour. The rig is set for a couple of hours after I buffed it out the last time. If it's going to be dry, it should be dry now. But let's put some flour on it. I knew you were going to laugh. We'll get a little on this side over here. Okay. Now I'm going to let it sit for 20 minutes or a half an hour, and we'll see. We'll get the blower out. We'll blow it off, and we'll see if it blows off evenly or if one sticks worse than the other. But then I'll rinse the whole thing off. Okay, the cookies have been in the oven for a while. Let's have a closer look. That's a lot of flour up there, so we'll start with the test now and see what happens. Okay, that's kind of interesting. So let's have a look here from left to right. The left is the SC1. It left quite a bit of flour on top, so it is kind of sticky. You can expect dust to stick to that. This next one here, that was the Honda spray. It was the one that didn't look wet at all, and most of it blew off. That's the best as far as sticking. The 303 compared to the SC1 might be just slightly less than the SC1. Of course, this is totally non-scientific, and even the pledge actually blew off pretty well. So if you're worried about dust sticking to your rig, I'm going to say that SC1 loses, and so does 303 for that test. And again, there's a million different types of 303. This is the 303 protectant. It's not 303 aerospace or some of the others they make. But that's pretty interesting test. You will see that where there's no treatment where the tape was, the flour didn't stick at all. So I think that's pretty telling. Interesting test. Okay, time to wash it off now. Okay, let's put a little water to it and see how it rinses off. Looks like all of it rinsed off really easily. So that's good. Not sure what that says about making it easy to wash after it's caked with mud, but my cookie flour washed off easily. So we'll just continue to, well, let's have a look around. That's where I live. Clarkston, Washington, Clarkston Heights, right across the river from Lewiston, Idaho. In fact, you're looking at Idaho in the hills over on that side. Okay, after my flour test, my cookie test, just a quick rinse after that and a wipe down. I can still see the tape marks where there was no treatment applied, but it's very hard to tell any difference in the three different products. Again, I'm very surprised that outside in the natural light you can't see it. But inside under the artificial lighting, there's a substantial difference. The only big difference I still see is where I tried the pure silicon spray. It's just not good at all. I think you can probably pick it up there. Sure you can. That's not real good. So it's not going to be any pure silicon spray for me. It might be an okay protector, but that's not the look I'm looking for, thank you. Anyway, so that's that. Time to put it back in and maybe wipe it down a little bit more. Okay, this is interesting. I've got it back inside now. I just washed it off. You know, we just did that I'm going to call it the cookie test, the flour on the roof and then blowing it off. And now that I've got it back inside, after just a rinse with no soap at all, just a rinse and then wiping it down with a towel, now it's very hard to see any difference at all in the three different products. In fact, the SC1 now looks lighter than the Honda spray. It's lost almost all of its gloss just from rinsing it down and toweling it down. The Honda spray and the 303 still have some gloss. The 303 seems to be the darker of the three, but I see some streaks in it. And the wax, or rather the Lemon Pledge, which has carnauba wax in it, it's still dark and even with pretty much a matte finish. There's not a lot of gloss on any of it now. Of course, when I come over here and look at the door, now I've got a really bright quartz light on this. Let's see which position is best for taking this. So this area down is the SC1. This area down is the Honda spray. This is the 303. And the 303, I don't know if you can see it, but the 303's got a lot of streaks in it now. I wiped it off twice and they've all had the same amount of time to dry. And then the wax, it's not Johnson's, it's Pledge. The Pledge has just a little streaking too. So at this stage of the game, although I can see a little bit of white coming back in the Honda spray. So anyway, we'll let her dry out some more, but that's kind of interesting. We've lost a lot of the apparent differences just by hosing it down and wiping it off. Next test is get it out and get it as muddy as we can get it, bring it back and put it through a normal washing, the same process I always use. So that's where we are for now. Bye. Okay, it's another day. I went out yesterday and got it pretty well mud crusted, so let's have a quick look and see what we did for mudding it up. That's pretty much my norm, I think, as far as you know. Generally I avoid mud puddles. I tried to find some mud yesterday, but I got it crusted up pretty good. It's dried on overnight. That's kind of my normal thing too. I'm usually too exhausted to hose it off when I get home. So anyway, that's the panel that's got the 4 treatments on it there. It's got a fairly even amount of mud on it. It seems to have stuck. Yeah, that very back panel actually, it didn't stick as much. Let's have a little closer look there. You can see where the tape lines, this back panel right here, that's where the SC1 was. It's actually stuck less than the other panels. I think the other panels are all fairly evenly stuck with it. So that's kind of interesting. I'm not sure why down there, you know, you can't see a line between the SC1 and the Honda spray. SC1 on the left, Honda spray on the right. I'm not sure why the very bottom panel doesn't show any difference, but anyway, that's the way it came out. The top, I can still see, that's interesting. I can't see if I'm holding the camera right, but on the top I can still see the tape lines, and the SC1 side still has more stuff stuck to it, more dust on it or whatever it is, than the others. So that's very interesting. The top gathered more dust where the SC1 is, but it rejected more of the mud down here on the lower parts. It may well have something to do with the different types of plastic they use in different areas too. So we'll start our washing process. The drier this side gets, the more it shows how the SC1 actually released the mud better. Again, at least on that top panel on the door. Maybe not so much or hardly any different on the bottom, but on the door it released a lot of mud. It's getting drier by the second, and the other three treatments, Honda Spray, 303, and Pledge, they didn't do anything different on the door panel or the body panels on the bottom, the rocker panels. So anyway, I'm about to pressure wash. I'm hoping I can pick all that up on my security camera and use that footage. And I always let the hose run under it for 4 or 5 minutes in each position, just to get as much crap off the bottom as I can. I don't have a foam cannon. I'd use a foam cannon, I suppose, if I had one. I tried a couple of times siphoning with the pressure washer, picking up car wash soap, and that foamed it down pretty good. But I really couldn't tell a whole lot of difference foaming it up and letting it soak versus just doing what I just did, hosing it down, let it soak, and then take the pressure washer to it. So that's my story on the foam cannon. I'd use it if I had it, but using the siphon out of the pressure washer puts too much car soap on it. So anyway, still got to go over it with the brush. The pressure washer is not going to do it. You'd have to get so close to the plastic it'd tear the plastic up. So next step is going to be to get a bucket of hot water and some car wash soap. Okay, I've never developed much of a preference for any kind of a car wash, but this particular stuff is Turtle Wax Max Power. I'll put probably a half a cup to a cup of it in a half of that bucket, so it'll be a fairly strong mix. And you know, before I do that, I think I'll take the camera off the tripod and show you how it's drying just after the pressure washing. Okay, there's the top again. SC1 on the left, Honda Sprays the next, 303's the third one over, and the Spray Wax Pledge on the far right. I'm not sure. I see well, I do see a lot of difference. SC1 seems to have more stuff sticking up here, but when I get down here, the SC1 has less stuck to it until you get down to the lower rocker panels. Then it's about the same as the Pledge or the SC1, but the Honda Spray is definitely the worst on this side. So it's kind of interesting. Sometimes things look like they're going to come out pretty good, and then turns out they don't. So anyway, we'll wash it down with a bucket and a brush now. Okay, you can kind of see, yeah, the SC1, the 303, and the wax all pretty much look the same, but the Honda spray left a lot more watermarks and a little bit of splotching and whiteness. The tape marks are almost all gone, but let's see what we have over here. So again, I can tell on the door, but not as much as right after pressure washing. The door is still a little blacker. So where's a good place for this? I can't tell. Well, you'll have to take my word for it. But the door is dark and not splotchy at all, but when you get down to the rocker panel, it's still light and has a bunch of splotchiness to it. The Honda spray, there's those white splotches, they're back already, but the splotches seem to stop where the 303 started. The furniture polish, the Pledge, has a little white splotch to it. The rocker panels, even where the SC1 was, it's splotched and streaked a bit, so I'm not too sure. We're going to have to think about this a bit before I come to a conclusion. But yeah, generally I'll pull it in and really detail it out from here. On this side, oh yeah, I'm going to have to treat that. That's where the, can we see that? That's where the darn silicone spray was. It's still white, but you can see even a little bit of white splotch behind where the silicone spray was, and back here where it was so bad. I think this is just a different type of plastic back here, and the treatments take differently to it, so probably the door is the only fair spot to compare everything, the door and the roof. So for right now, for this one, yeah, just don't use the pure silicone spray, or at least not the liquid wrench version. And up here, the Honda spray left more water spots and is lighter than anything else. And over here, the SC1 kind of makes a pretty substantial difference in the color of the door, but not down here on the rocker panel. So anyway, that's the report for today. I'm going to have to pull it back in the shop and finish detailing it out now. Okay, I'm tired. I want to get this done. That's a lot of washing and cleaning and chores to do. But I've come to a couple of conclusions, and this is just off the top of my head. And remember, remember, this is just some Old Buzzard telling you what his experiences are. So, take it for what it's worth. Do your own tests. I know I'm going to get a lot of argument and whatnot, but that's fine. I welcome comments, but don't expect to get in a fight with me. I don't do that. One of the things that I really notice is that I'm sure there's at least 4 different varieties of plastic on the machine, and each of those varieties take the plastic treatments differently. As an example, the SC1, it had a real high gloss, went on pretty much like spray paint, but you spread it around with a rag. Ended up with a high gloss, but when we did the cookie test, putting flour on top of it and then blowing the flour off, this appeared to be the stickiest thing that there was, and I was gonna reject it based on that. But it rinsed off okay, and then actually after pressure washing, it actually came the cleanest too. So there was kind of conflicting results there, but the SC1 did just fine, I think, in all categories. And even though it says it's a high gloss coating, just one rinsing and toweling off took the gloss off of it and just left a nice flat black, really uniform black matte coating. So I think that's going to be my #1 pick. The #2 pick didn't come out. That's the 303. The #2 pick didn't come out as uniform, and it didn't shed the mud after the pressure washer quite as well as the SC1, but it did pretty good anyway. And no matter what you use, you're going to have to brush wash it. You can't just hose it down and pressure wash it and call it good. Well, you might, but I won't. I'm kind of anal when it comes to having my machine look nice. So anyway, 303 was my second choice. The Lemon Pledge, it did almost as good as the 303. You couldn't tell much difference. If I remember right, the Pledge actually did the best test as far as putting powder on the roof and then blowing it off. But that's not a bad option either. The Pledge and the 303 did really close. The Honda spray that I've been using for a whole year, because I bought a whole case of it, I'm not going to recommend it. It came out splotchy. It almost appears that it's pretty much completely gone after a good washing, and it didn't protect things like I thought it was. It looks really nice after you put a first coat on it, if that's all you use and got nothing to compare it with. It looks really nice, and it is a cleaner too. I don't believe any of these say it's a cleaner other than the Honda spray, but I'm not going to use that anymore. Lastly on my list, do not use liquid wrench silicone spray. It says it's safe for plastic, but the panel I did with it, I could tell it sucked all of the oils or whatever is in plastic that gives it the dark black gloss, or the darkness anyway. I'm really hoping that after I put one of these products back on it, that I won't be able to notice where I tested this. But so the two I'm not going to recommend are the Honda spray, the liquid wrench silicone. I don't know if all silicones are the same. Perhaps there's a different propellant. I was pretty sure this was a pure silicone spray, but perhaps there's something more in it. I was going to download the MSDSs on all of them and check their chemical compound makeup, but that's too much work for me to do. This is all subjective anyway. So actually, between these 3 cans, I've probably got enough to get me through, or at least into the middle of summer anyway. But I've got them laid out there in the order that I'd recommend them. For those of you that think the SC1's too glossy, rinse it down with water, wipe it off. It turns the gloss into a flat matte finish. Looks really nice. 303 is good. The Pledge is good. Don't use these. So that's what the Old Buzzard's got to say about it. Take it with a grain of salt, and keep the rubber down and the roof up. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.